Hello, FSCJ community. I am here with good colleague and excellent professor Audrey Antee today at North Campus, and we've just finished up a nice chat, catching up and sharing some caffeine. So just in case you ever want to hook Audrey up with her favorite beverage, it was a
flat white, but in Christmas time I like a peppermint mocha.
Okay.
So it's seasonal.
All right.
Coffee preference is seasonal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's a hard worker. She deserves a coffee and a pat on the back as often as you see her. I learned something new today. I knew what a flat white was. So it's been educational. Apparently, I taught the barista what a flat white was too. Also, going by your email. So good opportunity for community outreach and training today this afternoon. So. But I appreciate your time and of course all your dedication to students and to the college. Just want to have a conversation about some things that we've been talking about and thought about in advance. So diving right in, I really appreciate your use of technology and your enthusiasm and trying to always do what's best for students and be creative with how you interact with students and accommodate them. I was just wondering how you get your drive and continue to do it every day, even as we go through changes and challenges that we have. What keeps you going, basically?
I part of the drive comes from wanting my students to like what I'm teaching them as much as I like it, right? So I'm still excited about the subjects that I teach, and I don't want them like nodding off in front of me in the classroom. So. And then some of the involvement with technology comes from, honestly, I'm trying to keep up with them to a certain extent. I mean, I'm a dinosaur compared to them and some of the stuff that they know how to use, and at the same time, sometimes too, they're not the most intelligent when it comes to how they use some of their technology, right? So I don't know. I think a lot of it comes from wanting to make sure that they stay excited about the subject, or at least make them not be afraid of writing or English and literature, and so that's a big part of it. And my interest in that often takes me to technology. What can I see or find that'll keep them collaborating with each other or engaged with me or think about things from a different perspective. So that's a big piece of it, I think.
Great. And so just to follow up here, just so everyone knows too, you teach several different classes and you're a professor of...
I'm a professor of English, and so I teach the basic composition course, the gateway course that all freshmen come and take, and I teach ENC 1102, which is a class where we teach them to write about texts. And occasionally I get to teach like an introduction to literature class or a world lit class, and those are fun as well.
Excellent. Yeah. And so I'm sure the Twitter sphere, I'm sure, is an interesting paradigm to interact with as a...
Yeah, I mean, I have, for my online students especially, who can't take advantage of some on-campus extra credit opportunities, they have the option to follow me on the social media of their choice for a little extra credit opportunities, and I'll post questions or ask them to read things and ask them about that kind of connect to what we're talking about in class. And sometimes people follow me, and then sometimes I'll have a semester where nobody does, so... I maybe there's a whole new social media out there that I don't even know about, and that's where they are now, and I'm not over there. But I mean, that's part of it too. Yeah.
I think you should invent one.
I should invent one. I don't think anybody would be on it except for me.
Well, we'll get your followers up, and we'll have at least 5 or 6, I would say.
5 or 6.
Judging by the podcast following that I have, so we'll do our part. So one of the themes that we sort of started with in the fall, which seems like about 17 years ago, at our kickoff, was the importance of recognizing that everyone has a story and a personal story and a unique path that they've taken to get to this point. So I was wondering if you could share your personal story to the extent that you wish to, of how you kind of got here, where you came from, what shaped your outlook and your experiences that got you to FSCJ.
So what's funny is that question makes me think of something one of my students told me today in class. She was working on a personal narrative, and as I was reading it over her shoulder, she sort of apologetically turned to me and said, this would be a much better story if I was a much more interesting person. So I kind of feel like that applies here. Like, I think this would be a much better story if I was a much more interesting person. I mean, I don't think that I ever set out to say I want to be an English professor. And even when I was in college and chose to study English literature, what was I thinking? I didn't have the idea in mind that I would be a college professor per se. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I think some of it is through just series of opportunities and things that I was interested in and things that I took advantage of. So when I was, first in the graduate program, it was natural for me to become an English tutor, and then I wanted to learn more about being a tutor and, some of the students who would come to tutoring or students who needed other types of support. And so I worked a little while as an advisor at UNF and still would teach part-time English, not still sure, what I want to be when I grow up, even though I was sort of grown up. So I think a lot of it is just kind of like thinking, I think I would like to try that. I think I'm interested in seeing where that takes me, and then making the choice to go in that direction and seeing where it took me. And inevitably, those opportunities lead to other opportunities and then kind of lead me to where I am, now. That wasn't a detailed or descriptive story.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's good. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to kind of think back on, swerve left or, swerve right, and kind of wondering where you would end up and how we got to where we are. So, well, as a fellow Osprey, I'm happy you're here. Swoop. And I guess you Mississippi school, I think, was in your...
Louisiana.
Louisiana,
My bachelor's,
that's right.
was from Louisiana. I'm a Gator now, too.
That's right. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Did you graduate with your PhD,
I'm
your
done.
EDD, PhD?
EDD, yeah.
Congratulations,
Thank
Dr.
you. Thank you very
Antee.
much.
I should have. We have to redo this interview.
No.
Yes, Dr. Antee.
No, not at all.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Very good. So, what was your topic, so we can all...
It's so, it's so boring though to talk, like nobody wants to really know what your dissertation talks about. So, I mean, I was studying peer review as a form of collaborative learning and using a multimedia tool, in this case it was called VoiceThread, to see if it made any impact on how students engage in peer review in online classes. Yeah, turns out it didn't.
Did not.
It did not.
Well,
so that was actually really kind of fun to have to write up, a book-length research paper on how basically it didn't really do what I thought it would do.
Well, it's an important contribution to the body of knowledge in that area.
That is what I'm told. Yes.
As we say in the sciences, it's sometimes you learn by chipping away at what's not true. So,
absolutely. No, I completely agree. I completely agree.
A clearer view of the truth now because of your hard work and dedication.
Thanks.
And someday I'll read your dissertation along with everyone else.
There will be a quiz.
We'll put a link up and then we can have people check it out. Well, congratulations.
Thank
it's a great
you.
accomplishment. So, way to go. So along the lines of this, surprise announcement that you've completed your journey. Any other tidbits or unique, accomplishments, characteristics, quirks, anything you care to share? Loves, hobbies?
Yeah, sure.
Dogs?
I have lots of dogs. I think people know that I have all kinds of animals at my house. But that's something that's maybe interesting. I don't know how many people know that I really love horror movies.
Okay.
I mean, those are my favorite kind of movies, like good horror movies, although I've watched kind of the B horror movies as well. And last semester when they had the film festival at Nassau Center, I wanted to go to all of them, but I was only able to go to the one that Professor Chibber was hosting on Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl. And it was just so awful and bloody and just it was terrible and hilarious, but I really enjoy so maybe not that type of horror movie, although he made a really good talk and explanation of connections to that movie and society, and I was like, wow, that is crazy. So don't see that film, anybody who listens to this podcast, unless you're with Professor Chibber so he can explain why it's important. But really scary horror movies, I love those.
So what's your favorite?
Oh my goodness.
Good one.
So one that I can remember that if I watched it now, it probably wouldn't scare me as much. But years ago when The Ring first came out in movie theaters, I went to see it with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and it was it was a really good, scary, creepy kind of scary movie.
Yeah.
So, you like leave the theater and it's still kind of with you, just that creepiness.
Yeah.
And we go to Walmart because we need to get groceries, and I'm sitting in the car with him and he's not getting out, and I look over at him and he's staring at me with this really wide-eyed, intense look on his face, and we had just gotten out of the movie and it scared me, and so I slapped him and I started to cry because I was still like in that place, and he laughed the rest of the night about it.
No.
He still laughs about
That's
that.
awesome.
But I don't know why.
That's a good one. Yeah, I
really
remember that
like
one.
I really like that feeling.
Is that the one with the fly that comes out of the TV or something?
It's just very, very like, it's not like shock scary so much.
Yeah.
It's just like there's just this creepiness behind everything that happens, and it just feels so surreal and just awful.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it blurred reality.
Yeah, and they're even better now. Like they have movies that are even better because of what they can do with CGI and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So tall white mocha and a horror movie, and you're a happy girl.
Flat white and a
Flat
horror
white.
movie.
Flat white.
And a horror movie, and I am.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Very cool. That's awesome. So kind of tracking along the same, personal, intruding on your personal narrative, in the idea of stories and experiences. One of the things I'm really interested in is sort of like the Eureka moments that shape your kind of your worldview, if you can remember from your education, like college experiences, a favorite professor, a favorite course, a favorite topic or lecture that sort of is a really memorable aha moment where you sort of like, I get it. My worldview has changed forever, and kind of along those same lines of that is, what is the value of college and education? Because I think that's something that we probably both care about, and not that we have to justify education, or you wouldn't think you'd have to, but
right.
I think that those sort of non-tangible, non-monetary, transactional, more transformational moments are what you get out of an education.
Yeah, I think
so. I wonder if you'd share kind of a couple or one of your sort of like stories of,
sure.
This is where, I get it.
I think a lot of us have had multiple ones.
Yeah.
And so, of course, throughout my academic, career being a student, there have been lots of moments. But I can remember sort of like one particular course that broadened my worldview when I was sort of ashamed at the fact that I didn't already have that worldview. I took a multicultural literature class as an undergrad, and it was interesting because it didn't occur to me until I took that class that things like that existed. Mm-hmm. Like I had never read anything that I can recall in high school or growing up or by choice, and I read a lot that was written by authors from other countries, like Things Fall Apart or Bless Me Ultima, or there were so many books that we read in that class. And I remember too the professor talking about some of the themes and concepts like colonialism and post-colonialism, and those concepts just never even occurred to me. Like I was shocked to even consider the fact that there's this whole kind of cultural and social impact on a country after it's been colonized, and it's logical. Like, of course that would happen.
Right.
But to see it, as written by these authors, it was a totally different. I don't know. It was a totally different thing. And I was from just like a small town in Louisiana, and my parents supported me reading, but they didn't necessarily read a lot of things like that.
Right.
My dad read Stephen King, and
Right.
And that's not to say that they weren't aware, kind of world politics and social issues and things like that. But until that class, like I truly did not have the view of like this is all out there.
Yep.
So for me, that was a really important moment in challenging me to think about. So there's this whole other genre of authors that I have never even tried to touch on. Beyond Western literature.
Yeah.
So that for me that class was a big deal.
Big time.
And I loved that professor
Paradigm
too.
shift.
Yeah.
So you remember the professor's name or any of the details?
I think that her name was Dr. Lashney.
Okay.
But I can't remember for sure, and I believe that she's retired now because she was close to retiring when I was there, and that was tear horror more than 10 years ago. Like so.
Was this ULM?
Yeah. This was at the University of Louisiana at Monroe, and there weren't, and then this isn't to say that there weren't like good English classes, but a lot of them were sort of the traditional Western canon type of classes, and so that class, and I didn't have to take it. I chose to take it as an elective for my program. That class just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think
it was.
those are definitely the moments that we
I think so too.
live for and hope to provide to our students too.
I hope so.
Hopefully
I hope I've at least
strive
blown
to.
one mind.
Exactly.
Like
Just one.
Just one.
Makes your semester and makes your year when you can have that.
It does. Totally.
Awesome. Thank you. So kind of broadening our scope a little bit in terms of not so much the past, maybe the present and the future. If you could take a magic wand and change an aspect of the educational landscape, either here locally or statewide or nationally, kind of what sort of things do you feel like would, we should take a crack?
Right?
Yeah.
There's so many, right?
Despite, besides funding, I don't know, education.
Yeah. I mean, money's always a problem, right?
Yeah.
So money's always an issue. But I wish that students who graduate from high school feel better prepared for college. Like, I hate having a student who was potentially a very successful student in high school, take my class or my class in a math class or take a couple of classes in college and then suddenly realize how grossly underprepared they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that happens way more often than that
mm-hmm.
should happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that there's any one particular school, that's at fault
mm-hmm.
or any one particular teacher. I just think that the system of push them through hasn't gone away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we have that system at this institution, which is good. Like, we try to preserve the rigor, but then those students who they thought they had it or they were at least okay in high school, then they kind of just it blows their mind in not a great way that
mm-hmm.
I don't want to blow somebody's mind that way.
Right.
And maybe potentially, causes them to decide to give up or not to persist.
Right.
So I would really love if there was just, I don't know what it would be called or how to accomplishment, of course, but more of a system in high school that was honest to students
mm-hmm.
and letting them know, this is where you stand. And if we say that in high school they're being prepared for college, you have high schools that are college prep high schools, but I don't know that they're actually doing that.
Right.
And so maybe it requires more of a conversation too,
sure.
Between our institution and high school. And we have some great partnerships and wonderful dual enrollment students.
Yeah.
But I mean, it seems like it's too frequent, I think. That a student comes to college and
mm-hmm.
suddenly realizes, I thought I was, a much better writer than what you're showing me,
mm-hmm.
or I thought I was better at math, or I thought I was better at all of these different things. And it's not that they can't learn, it's just that, I think that's really difficult for someone to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm wondering maybe some mentoring or some peer-to-peer mentoring.
Yeah,
or some
peer-to-peer mentoring would probably help. I think
alumni of the high school coming.
Yeah,
forth,
that could be cool too. Some way of really preparing our freshmen, maybe if they go through an orientation, having an aspect of that being
mm-hmm.
talking to a senior, in the bachelor's program here, or, talking to someone who's just recently finished their AA and
mm-hmm.
their first year of college or first semester of college and what it was like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I think we can get you to tackle another PhD project. We'll get you signed
I'm not
up.
doing that.
Okay.
That's not going to happen.
Right. Someone else.
Somebody else.
We've got a winner of a topic though. Great. Yeah, I think that's really good insight, and you probably will find that resonate with a lot of our colleagues here. Just two more questions before we try to beat the afternoon interstate traffic here. Kind of important questions, I think. Personally, for you, I think it's just what projects do you have right now that you're excited about? I know we talked a little bit, kind of informally, before we started sort of recording. Some things you're working on in terms of technology and how you're applying that to the classroom, like a SPOL initiative, for example. So I'll just let you kind of take the reins and run with it. What projects you have that you're undertaking, and then maybe something that you haven't been able to start, but some sort of dream, project that you need some collaboration on that you think would be impactful and you're excited to kind of share.
Those are super huge questions.
Yeah.
In
30 seconds.
What are you going to do with the rest of your life?
30 seconds, how are you going to change the world?
Yeah. I mean, I have my toe dipped in a couple of different things. A lot of us are on different committees for things that we're excited about. And so there are some projects that I'm not necessarily spearheading myself, but that I'm working with other people on. And
mm-hmm.
so like the service learning that I have students doing this semester is a big deal for me because
mm-hmm.
it's the first time I've attempted to incorporate service learning into a course, and yet at the same time, it's sort of connected to the author series. So the inspiration for it came from The World's Strongest Librarian, which is about, a librarian. And he talks in one part of the book about seeing kids in the library who, things are happening to them to potentially push them away from reading. So my students are doing service learning with Learn to Read, where they're helping some of the group instructors help teach adult learners, the skills that they need to be functionally literate and beyond, and to get into GED programs if that's what they desire, and also volunteering at the Women's Center because they have an expanded Horizons literacy program, so tutoring some of the people there, and they're researching specific aspects of literacy. So some of them are tackling locally, like literacy and poverty, or gender and literacy, and some of them have chosen to look at kind of the issue of, when immigrants come into the country and they're successful in their own country and they come here and then they have to struggle, or, how does that impact the community and how does that impact that person? And so that's a big one for me, like trying to incorporate that in my class and help my students get their hours and help them understand why it's important. And it connects to another reading that they're going to do later, the Reader, which is about post-World War II Germany, and also kind of connects to literacy. And so that's a big one that I'm sort of tackling in conjunction with something else. But I mean, we also have such cool stuff coming to campus, and so I'm on one of the committees that's called History and Heritage Committee, and they're organizing events now for Black History Month, and I just went to one event at downtown called Huckleberry Inn on the history of the N-word, and V. Bird from the Office of Diversity and Social Change, I'm pretty sure that's the name of her department, was the one sort of providing the history and then facilitating the discussion, and it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, V's fantastic.
Oh my God, it was fantastic, truly. And then I'm sort of supporting Professor Jennifer Coleman, the Spanish professor here at North, with a readers theater where student volunteers are reading narratives from slavery all the way up through the early 21st century, when there's some interviews from people who were descendants of the Kingsleys, and it's just there's so many cool things that people are doing that's going on. And so those are some of the things that I'm doing now. I'm exhausted from this semester. I don't know if I have any future projects in mind. Yeah. Maybe, I like doing stuff for Banned Books Week, and so maybe I'll collaborate with the library on that. The public services coordinator for the library, Jennifer Gray, has helped me do events, and she's fantastic. Or, maybe I'll partner. I don't know. Maybe I'll partner with Professor Chipper and see if he wants to do a film thing, because I know he likes stuff like that, and I like horror, so a lot of possibilities there. But yeah, so I think that there are interesting things happening, and I'm excited that I'm kind of at least a part of it, or, in some way involved. I don't always have to be one of the people planning it. I'm totally happy, showing up and cheering people on who do an awesome job, and trying to get my students to go. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't know for future projects, though. I'll have to, I'm sure something will come up, an opportunity will present itself, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Those all sound fantastic. And this is one of my favorite things about doing these interviews and the fellowship, is that I get a chance to hear about all the fantastic initiatives that are going on, which we know are happening. So just a good opportunity again to say thank you to you and everyone else at the college who's doing this great work, and we'll definitely continue to try to highlight all the great stuff that's going on. It's all very exciting and impactful. So
cool.
Sounds great. I really love the service learning that you're tackling. I think that's a great...
Yeah, I think it's good for the students.
Yeah, it's a great initiative.
See how it turns out.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let me know.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Oh, I will. Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
We'll have a debrief. So, well, last question. It's hard to believe it's already to the end of our time for today. My favorite kind of final question is sort of a tag-in, type of question. Who are the other faculty members? And some of which you've already mentioned, who you collaborate with, some who inspire you, those who you look up to, etc. And just kind of who you want to give a shout out to, basically.
I was about to say it's like winning an Academy Award, right?
Like
and
the
I'd
kids
like
say.
to thank.
Yes.
Yeah. I can honestly say, if there's anything that I need or have questions about that have to do with the campus, for sure, or even some of the things that they do in their classes, I always look to Nancy Bullard, on this campus, and also Karen Otto. I actually asked Karen, how do you word this in your syllabus for service learning? Because I know that she does it with her speech classes too. So I support from faculty, is just like our colleagues are so willing to share what they do. But also, the faculty librarian, Mary Dumbleton, is a wonderful resource for different things. Like, I think Professor Coleman and I had talked to her about, well, what kind of things do you think we should do in the Reader's Theater? And we have some ideas, but what are your ideas? And bam, she's like, here you go, this, and this. And look, here's a connection to Kingsley Plantation. So, she's amazing. And I asked her to make a LibGuide for the service learning to help the students with their research. And she's like, well, yeah, here you go, right here. So I think at this campus especially, there are so many wonderful people. And as it relates to my department and the curriculum types of projects that we do, like David Houston upstairs is amazing to work with, and Marilyn, her name's Marilyn Painter now. Yeah, she recently got married. It's also someone that, when it comes to communicating about curriculum and the stuff related to what we do and assessment and some of those things, I love talking to those guys. Yeah.
Awesome.
And lots of people that I'm not even mentioning.
Yes.
That don't be offended if I don't mention your name.
Exactly.
I can't really think of any one particular person that I've worked with on a project that has been just oh gosh, no, I never want to see this person again. Everybody in their own way has a lot to contribute, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great place.
I think
got a very special thing going on here. So we'll keep it going.
We have an amazing faculty, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much for your time and sharing your thoughts on.
Thank you for the coffee.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And if you see Audrey, again, congratulate Dr. Antee on her recent dissertation, and buy her a flat white for
unless
her,
it's Christmas and I want a peppermint mocha.
Or a peppermint mocha.
Yeah.
So long for now, and you all have a great rest of your semester, and take care.